What if Glaceon was in Gen 1 OU? Now, I'm sure you guys have heard of this Pokemon called Articuno. I'm also sure you've heard of this Pokemon called Jolteon. So what if you got Articuno and you just turn it into an evolution? That's basically what Glaceon is. For Articuno is a ice type that has 125 special. It knows Blizzard, Ice Beam, and then it uses Double Edge and Hyper Beam, I guess, and Agility, obviously. But that's basically Articuno's whole thing. Here's Glaceon. Notice anything different? Yeah, that Glaceon has an even higher special stat. Not to mention, it is a pure ice type instead of an ice flying type, which is huge. Because even though ice is a great typing in Gen 1, the flying typing still makes it pretty bad. You're weak to electric, and you have a quad weakness to rock slide. That is really bad. Meanwhile, Glaceon being a pure ice type means it doesn't have to worry about that. It doesn't have to worry about quad rock moves. And even if it's hit with a rock slide, it has higher defense than Articuno does. Not as high HP, but... Or actually, I guess with the HP and the defense difference is basically the same for both of them. Except one isn't taking quad damage, which is huge. But also, it's not weak to electric, which is also just really good. It means you can beat Zapdos, instead of it being, could go either way. Its speed isn't as good. However, with 65 base speed, you are outspeeding a lot of really important stuff anyways. The most important thing you're outspeeding being Executor with base 55 speed. It does suck you don't have 85, because Articuno, at the very least, can outspeed Cloyster. However, since Cloyster quad resists your moves, and your 60 attack is not going to do anything against its absurd defense, I'm gonna say it doesn't matter. So Glaceon, I think, has perfect stats. Because even though its attack is low, it would be kind of busted if Glaceon had good physical options too. So, it seems fair. It does one thing only, and that's spam Blizzard. But it does it really well. Even does it better than Articuno. Which means Glaceon is now the Pokemon that has the single most strongest special attack in the game that isn't boosted. And that's pretty cool. Because I think Glaceon is pretty cool. Pun intended, yeah. Some other moves that Glaceon can learn would be Body Slam, Hyper Beam, and Mimic. I don't think they're very good. I don't need to explain why Mimic isn't very good, but it's debatably the best one of those three. Hyper Beam, with your 60 attack, is just not doing enough damage. You need to use it as a finishing move. But what are you going to use as a finishing move against? How are you going to get Jinx and Chansey to such low HP with special Ice Beams to where you can't finish off a Hyper Beam? It's just not going to happen. And Body Slam, not only is it doing just absolutely abysmal damage with your base 60 attack, but way more importantly, Glaceon, to no one's surprise, wants to freeze things anyways. So it doesn't want to potentially paralyze something, because then you can't just freeze something with Blizzard or Ice Beam. That's why Double Edge is your best option. With 100 base power, it does decent damage against Jinx, not even Chansey. But you're not going to be clicking it that much anyways. Because with just how much damage you can do with your stab, you're mostly going to do Wizard Spam, or you're going to use Ice Beam if you're fishing for freezes, or if it's like a 3-hit KO for a damage range, or 2-hit KO, or if you just want to be more accurate. So overall, Glaceon is really good. Perfect stats. I'm going to say a fairly reasonable move pool. So let's just see how it does against the other Pokemon, shall we? I have high hopes. Now starting off with the boy himself, Tauros. Because if you're a really good defense stat, you eat body slams easily. Not to mention, you can 2-hit KO with Blizzard, and a critical is always a guaranteed OHKO. So we're already off to a great start. But wait, what if the Tauros specs into Fire Blast? Ooh, that is a concern, isn't it? Well, even Fire Blast is, to my surprise, a 3-hit KO. Now granted, Tauros is so Tauros, it can crit, and obviously when you crit, it's gonna do a lot of damage, and Fire Blast can bring you down to the red. However, a crit from Glaceon can just OHKO entirely, and even with the crit, you're still not killing Glaceon. It's still going to do half damage to you, which you do not want to risk as a Tauros, because if your Tauros gets put the half HP, suddenly the enemy Tauros can always kill you with Hyper Beam, or maybe even kill you with something else. So no matter how you look at it, it's always going to be a good matchup for Glaceon. Snorlax is a lot tankier, so it's a lot more annoying, but Blizzard is still a 3-hit KO. So this situation here is why you often would rather use Ice Beam. Also, I think it's funny, because I was literally about to use Self-Destruct on that Snorlax set. So this Glaceon got really lucky. But what about Amnesia Wax? Now, at first, I was thinking to myself, okay, that just hard counters Glaceon. And it's definitely annoying. However, 65 base speed isn't really that bad when it comes to your crit rate. Snorlax needs to set up a few turns to get those Amnesias up. So not only is it potentially risking a very scary freeze, but Glaceon has a few opportunities to just keep spamming ice moves and get that crit. And if it gets a crit, the Snorlax is forced to go for rest again, which will again give you a few turns to fish for a crit. And even a critical Ice Beam does 70%. So that should just show you how much powerful Glaceon is with its moves. And that was a damage range right there, I'm pretty sure. So that Snorlax just got very close to dying. So, this is why resistances are so important. Snorlax can get super tanky, but it always is scared of a freeze, and crits could really ruin its day. But to be fair, if it does manage to crit, it does a lot of damage. Also, that last play was probably a misclick. I probably should have gone for Ice Beam, since a critical would have been enough to kill. But it doesn't really matter. You get the idea now. And then Chansey. Like I said, Double Edge doesn't really do that much. It's probably better just to go for Ice Beam, solely so that you can try to fish for a freeze. But luckily, Glaceon doesn't care about paralysis that much. And even better, with its bulk and with rest, which I don't think I actually talked about during the pre-analysis. But rest is pretty good. You're already pretty tanky with your stats and Movepool, but specifically for Chansey alone, rest could be used to stall out the seismic tosses. So that's pretty good. In fact, I'd even argue it's a lot better than I would have thought the Chansey matchup would have been. Because for Articuno, doesn't Chansey just wall unless it gets frozen? I don't know if Articuno sets use rest a lot. Pretty sure Articuno mostly uses Agility, Blizzard, Ice Beam, and Double Edge? So yeah, unlike Articuno, Chansey can just dominate. Although it is fair to say that if Glaceon had Agility, like Jolteon did, it would probably use it instead of... Actually, would it? I don't know. That's actually a very good question. Let me know what you think in the comments on if you think Glaceon would use Agility or not. Also, you should definitely watch my video on Generation Jumble where I fought Gobby. The video is called The Worst Match I Ever Had. It was honestly a really sick-ass match, and I think you'd have a lot of fun with it. In general, I think you guys should give Generation Jumble another chance. You should definitely try watching the videos if you can. They're pretty good. But for now, Glaceon unfortunately lost to double paralysis in a row. So maybe the Chansey should have done that at the beginning. At the same time, that's still just RNG. Glaceon very easily could have just rested off the paralysis again. But look here, it brought the seismic toss down to 11. So even if the Glaceon goes down, it did a pretty good job at stalling out the Chansey. Meaning your Chansey will always win the stall war. And then for Zam, it's faster than you, It can crit while you're special, but at the same time, it is absolutely terrified of getting frozen. I don't think it's enough to make it could go either way, because Zam just, well, for one, freezing is just a 10% chance. And also, Zam can always recover off damage, even if you get a crit. But it's worth knowing that for bad matchups, it's not the worst thing in the world. I've definitely seen a lot worse out there. But you should probably save your Glaceon for something else. Now, Cloysters is completely unwinnable. It's faster than you. Your ice moves are quad resisted. Not to mention, Double Edge doesn't do that much either. And it's faster, which I just said, so it can Clam Walk you. So there's literally nothing Glaceon can do. So just, might as well just go for Explosion there, just because we don't need to see that full replay. You already get the picture. And for Executor, you're faster than it, and to no one's surprise, a crit will kill you. It needs to hit that Sleep Powder, because if it doesn't, it is screwed. It is so screwed the next turn. But that does make the question, what if there's another Pokemon already asleep? Well, you probably already know the answer. It's not pretty if Executor can't put it to sleep. Blizzard does so much damage. And also getting frozen, that can also suck. So Glaceon can always just finish you off. I didn't even test it, but I wouldn't even be surprised if Ice Beam is a 2-hit KO. In fact, it probably is. You don't even need to risk Blizzard power points. And then Gengar is weird. Blizzard's only a 3-hit KO, so it's probably another example where you just use Ice Beam instead. It can put you to sleep, and it has the special bulk to where it can last a few turns against ice moves. But I don't know who has the better advantage or not. I do think actually putting the Glaceon to sleep is huge. I think it's a good trade, even if Gengar does nothing else in the game. So, could go either way. At least in my opinion. You let me know what you think in the comments. And then Jolteon. We have the siblings battling it out. Somehow the slower one got the crit, but I don't think it matters too much, because I think it's pretty clear these guys can just 3-hit KO each other. Both have high special and hit hard. Do I even want to give it more to the Jolteon because of its higher crit rate? Because even though it has a higher crit rate, again, Glaceon's is pretty decent. Not to mention it can freeze, which it cannot do against Jinx. Like I said before, Double Edge can do decent damage, but even without Sweep Claws or whatever, Jinx can always just 3-hit KO with Psychic, so there's nothing the Glaceon can do, really. It's always just a pretty unwinnable matchup, but one where you can definitely beat up the Jinx a lot, and a crit could save you. Although nothing is going to save Rhydon from Glaceon's Blizzard. By the way, we just saw right there, that's what happens to non-Grabback subscribers. So before the video even goes any further, I need you to stop. I need you to take a deep breath, breathe in, breathe out, and check and see if you're subscribed or not. If you're not subscribed, you better click that button right now. Also, don't ask why I asked you to take a deep breath. People just need to do that every once in a while. It helps calm them down. I hope you feel calmed down right now. And if you don't, sucks to be you. Now, Swellbro. You can fish for a freeze, I guess. Granted, the Swellbro player is probably terrified the entire time, because their main win con getting killed by a 10% chance is, you know, not ideal. I should know, again, with my match with Gobby, I had to play 3 games where the entire time I was trying to, like, play around getting frozen. It's terrifying. It actually was giving me a lot of stress. But it was still a very good match that you should check out. I'm talking about that because there's not much to say for the actual Glaceon versus Swellbro matchup. Either Glaceon gets the freeze, or Swellbro can set up max special. Doesn't even need to use Thunder Wave, and probably didn't even need to go for Rest, if I'm being honest. And Starmie is just as unwinnable as Glaceon, except you can hit a little bit harder. It's still only 20%, not really that good, but still. Granted, if you just put the Starmie You just freeze it. Obviously, Glaceon has an unwinnable matchup. In fact, Mewtwo also has an unwinnable matchup if you manage to freeze it. So overall, Glaceon theoretically is literally the best Pokemon in the game, if you really think about it. But yeah, Glaceon got lucky here. And for those of you who know how I do my videos, I do not actually count frozen or freezing as, for the most part, not like viable for like a Pokemon's for the Tauros. I'm not sure I can't talk right now. Basically, what I'm saying is, even though the Glaceon can freeze the Starmie, for actually ranking the 1v1, I always pretend like you can't freeze it. And if that's the case, Starmie is always unwinnable. Glaceon always loses. Not sure why that was so hard to say. But last but not least, we have Zapdos. Zapdos can hit harder than Jolteon, I think? Or about as hard, maybe? Either way, yeah, Glaceon can win 1v1. Granted, Zapdos can win with crits, but Glaceon can win even harder with crits. Doesn't think it matters too much. Especially since, in practice, you're probably only taking out the Glaceon once everything else is frozen, where it can just hit even harder, and everything is most likely at half HP. But either way, here's the tier list. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Pretty fitting that the only things that are unwinnable are all Ice Resist. Makes a lot of sense to me. Actually, this is supposed to be a great matchup. This should probably could go either way. No longer perfectly balanced. Unfortunate. Either way, though, Glaceon obviously would be OU. It would be very powerful. And I think it would completely kill any viability for Articuno in OU. Is there even any reason to use Articuno? Because I don't think the Earthquake immunity is that great, in all honesty. Let me know what you think in the comments. Would Glaceon be OU? Would Articuno see any use still? And where would Glaceon actually rank in the viability? Would it be a better ice type than Cloyster and Jinx? Let me know in the comments below. But until next time, this is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.